Today, we're going to dive into the mind of a 4th century philosopher, a guy named Gregory of Nyssa. And what's so fascinating is that he was grappling with a question that, honestly, we're still trying to answer. What exactly is our consciousness? I mean, how do you even begin to define something you can't see or touch?
Really, think about it for a second. How do you know your own mind exists? You can't see your thoughts, right? You can't put your feelings on a scale. You just know. You know you're in there thinking and feeling. And believe it or not, this super modern feeling problem is exactly where Gregory of Nyssa kicks off his ancient argument. How do we prove that this invisible world inside our heads is even real?
Okay, so here's the game plan for how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to tackle this whole idea of a world we can't see. Then we'll look for some clues in things we can see, like sound and air. From there, we'll talk about why our 5 senses might not be telling us the full story. After that, we get to the really cool part. How do you define something invisible? And finally, we'll get to the heart of it all, what Gregory thought the soul's true nature really is.
So let's just jump right into that central puzzle, right? We all experience the world through our senses. Sight, sound, touch, you know the deal. But Gregory comes along and asks a huge question. What about the most fundamental thing there is, our own consciousness? How in the world are we supposed to use our minds to understand something our senses can't pick up on at all?
And this, right here, is the core problem. The text basically says, look, our senses are awesome for the physical world, colors, textures, all that stuff, but they're completely useless when it comes to that rational being that lies hidden within us. That whole internal world of thought and reason, it's a complete black box to our senses. So, where do you even start?
So if you're Gregory, how do you build a bridge from the world you can see to the one you can't? Well, his approach is just brilliant. He doesn't hit you with some dense, heavy philosophy right away. Nope. He starts with a really simple, everyday example to get us thinking. He uses the analogy of a flute. Just think about a flute for a second. The air that's being blown into it, it's totally invisible, right? You can't see it, you can't grab it. But when that invisible force goes through the instrument, when it's given some structure, it creates something our senses can absolutely perceive. Sound, music.
And this is his first huge point. You can have an invisible cause that creates a very real, very observable effect. It's a simple idea, but it's so powerful. Just because you can't see the cause doesn't mean the effect isn't real. And this leads to this amazing idea. What if the soul is the invisible air and our body is the flute that lets it make music?
Okay, so this is where the argument takes a really cool turn. He goes from using the physical world as an analogy to straight up questioning the limits of the physical world itself. The point isn't just that some things are hidden from us, it's that our senses are, well, fundamentally limited. And this right here, this is the big pivot point. After playing around with these physical analogies, Gregory drops a bombshell of a conclusion about the soul. He says, and I'm quoting here, "I've learned that it is not material." That one little idea, that the soul is just not a physical thing, changes the entire conversation.
And you can really see that divide here. On the one hand, you've got all the stuff our senses can handle, no problem. Color, hardness, shape, size. But on the other hand, you've got these huge abstract ideas, like justice or the good. And Gregory says, the soul, well, it belongs firmly in that second column. It's something you have to grasp with your reason, not with your hands or eyes.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that relying only on our 5 senses is kind of like trying to understand a movie by just listening to the sound. You're getting a part of the story, but it's a massively incomplete picture. The argument is basically saying that maybe, just maybe, the most important parts of reality are the ones we can't see, hear, or touch at all.
Okay, but this creates a massive philosophical problem, doesn't it? If the soul isn't physical, if it has no color, no shape, no size, then how on earth do you even start to define it? That's like trying to explain the color red to someone who was born blind. Where do you even begin?
Well, to get around this, Gregory uses this really clever philosophical tool. It's called a negative definition. And the idea is actually pretty simple. If you can't say what something is, you start by saying everything it isn't. I love this analogy. It's like a sculptor who starts with a block of marble. They don't add anything, they just chip away everything that isn't the statue. And this is exactly what that process looks like for the soul. Gregory just systematically chips away all the physical stuff. He says, look, the soul is not a material object.
It's not something you can divide into little pieces, it does not follow the laws of physics like mixing and separating, and you absolutely cannot see it, touch it, or measure it. The conclusion you're left with is pretty stark. The soul exists in a category all its own, totally outside the rules of the physical world.
All right, so we've chipped away everything the soul isn't. And now, finally, we get to the big question. If it's not any of that physical stuff, what does it actually do? What's its job?
And here it is. This is the heart of the argument. After getting rid of all the distracting physical properties, Gregory defines the soul by what it does. He says it's the animating principle. It's that invisible force, remember the air and the flute, that gives life, reason, and coherence to what would otherwise just be a lifeless pile of matter.
So let's break that down a bit. First, the soul is what gives the body life and strength. Second, it's the engine of our intellect. It's what lets us think and reason. And third, and this is so important, it's what makes our senses actually work. You can think of it like this. Your eyes might be the camera hardware, but the soul is the software that actually processes the image and lets you see.
I mean, this quote from the text just nails it. The soul is a being with reason, which to the body and its organs gives power and life, that makes the senses effective. It's that simple and that profound. Without the soul, the body is just an instrument lying in its case.
But wait, Gregory takes this one final, mind-bending step. He suggests that our soul, what he calls our created nature, isn't even the original thing. It's more like a reflection. Think about seeing a perfect image of the sky and a calm lake. He argues that our consciousness is that lake, and it's reflecting something he calls the uncreated nature, a higher, divine reality.
And that leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. If our soul, our own hidden thinking self, is just an image, then what is it an image of? What's the original that's casting that reflection? It's a question that takes us right to the edge of philosophy and into something much, much bigger. And it's a puzzle we're still trying to solve nearly 1,700 years later.